This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Looking to start a side hustle or become your own boss? Do it with Shopify. Whether you're selling succulents or stilettos, Shopify has the industry-leading tools to help you create, control, and grow your own business. So get serious about selling and get Shopify today. Sign up for a £1 per month trial period at shopify.co.uk/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.co.uk/special offer.
Hello and welcome to Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. I'm Becky Parker Geist and I'm your host. Audiobook Connection is your place to learn about the audiobook creative process in discussions between the authors, narrators, producers, and post-production teams that bring them all together, as well as guests who have listened to the audiobooks and have questions for the creative teams. This podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. And today I'm excited to have with me Joy Moeller, author of Is Your Tongue Killing You? Learn How to Sleep, Breathe, Chew, and Swallow Correctly. Joy is a certified orofacial myofunctional therapist. Joy, welcome.
Thank you for doing this and helping me get my audiobook out to the public.
Oh, my great pleasure. And on a personal note, I just want to say my mom's name was Joy also. So it always gives me a sort of extra special inner joy when I'm working with folks whose name is Joy. So you are a practitioner of myofunctional therapy. You also have a lot of letters after your name. BS, RDH, AOMTC. So for our listeners that might need some clarification, could you tell us a little bit more about myofunctional therapy, what that means, and then also what those letters stand for?
Okay. Well, myofunctional therapy is a type of therapeutic exercises, I would say more therapeutic techniques that are designed to work with the back of the tongue and the front of the whole tongue, swallowing, chewing, and breathing. And I found out about this because the RDH in my name is registered dental hygienist. And I actually taught dental hygiene at Indiana University years ago. And I started teaching in the dental school, but I noticed my son had problems where he had ADHD, he had colic as a baby, he couldn't breathe, and he couldn't sleep. He was sick all the time. He couldn't go to school. He had headaches and jaw pain, like temporomandibular joint pain. And being his mom was a challenge because 3 days a week I would get a call from the school nurse saying, your son has another skull crusher, he called it. And I had to go get off work and go and pick him up from school and arrange for childcare. It was very challenging. And I took him to many, many doctors all over, many different types of therapists and doctors. And I was very frustrated. Took him where they looked at everything, like at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester. And they referred me to a neurosurgeon. The neurologist tested him and said, that they had him on a lot of medications. And they said they wanted to do surgery, exploratory surgery on his brain.
Wow. And
I was real worried. It was my baby.
Yeah.
And I didn't know quite what to do, but I was listening to the doctors. I was very traditional, according to the book. And my husband at the time got transferred to San Diego. So we moved to San Diego, and there wasn't a dental school there. So I started looking for a dental hygiene job, and I found one 5 minutes from home. And it was a very nice dentist who told him I have a sick child that I might have to be off work for. And he said, well, what's wrong with him? And I said, he has headaches and jaw pain, and he doesn't eat anything. He had failure to thrive. We had to grind him with smoothies most of the time.
Yeah.
He was always in pain. And I said, sometimes he I get called to come and get him from school because he has a headache. He can't focus.
Yeah.
He said, well, let me take a look at him. And so I said, sure. So I brought him in and he said, I just took a course in myofunctional therapy and your son's tongue is in the wrong place. And I said, I never heard of such a thing.
Right.
I said, what do you mean it's in the wrong place? It's in his mouth.
Right.
He said, no, it's supposed to be up in the roof of the mouth. It's supposed to rest in the roof of the mouth because the tongue is actually not a muscle. It's an organ. It's a respiratory organ. And it works with your diaphragm, which is another muscle that goes around your waist. And they work together to bring more oxygen into the lungs. And it helps a lot of things, he said. So he said, I want you to do these exercises. And I said, sure, I'll do whatever.
Right.
Things. There were very strange things with buttons and strings and pulleys, but I was willing to do anything. And in a very short time, like 3 weeks, he started eating.
Wow.
And he could focus. And within 3 months, his teeth started straightening out.
Wow.
He also saw, and my boss wanted me to take him to an osteopathic physician. And I had no idea what an osteopath, I knew it had to do with bones.
Yeah.
But the osteopath I took him to was in La Jolla, California. And she said, she asked about the birth. Yeah. And I said, it was a difficult birth. He was a breech and he turned in the canal. And she said he has birth trauma, which I'd never heard of. So he came out with colic, screaming, and didn't stop for a year. It was very challenging being his mom.
Yeah. Now, how old was he when you went to the dentist that you started working for?
Yeah, he was like 10 or 11, somewhere in there.
Okay, yeah.
When he finally started feeling better, and the dentist also put a little palate expander in his mouth, which helped. And I was like amazed because he normalized. He could focus. He could eat. He could play he had friends. The teachers loved him.
Yeah. And
he was just the good little boy I always wanted,
Yeah.
And so I was very excited. I went back to school. At the time, there was an institute in Coral Gables, Florida. So I flew down there and I studied down there and I went through an internship program. And then I studied with everybody in the United States at the time that was doing myofunctional therapy. There was an organization that I belonged to for 25 years. And I was on the board of that organization. And then I started teaching courses, started my own organization because I knew it had to do with sleep. Because after my son could actually get his tongue working, he could sleep all night, which was a new thing because he always had trouble falling asleep. He couldn't stay asleep once he fell asleep. And he was always, in the morning, he would wake up not refreshed. He was exhausted.
Yeah.
So I knew he had a sleep disorder. This was a long time ago. So,
yeah.
And
I think for most of us not dealing with the situation, these kinds of issues that you're discussing are, it's sort of like almost like a foreign idea, the idea that somehow we wouldn't know how to chew or place our tongue, that these things that just generally come naturally, or that we wouldn't, or that the way that they're happening for us, we don't recognize the connection between what's happening in our mouths and other issues like sleeping or.
Well, that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah.
I wrote the book, and then I realized that most people listen to books nowadays. And instead of reading books, because I did sell quite a few on Amazon, but when I asked people that I knew who bought it, they'd say, well, I haven't read it. I haven't really read it yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like beds. I'm like, no, I want you to read it. I didn't do this to make a lot of money. I did this to get the information out there.
Yeah.
And they said, well, I'll get to it.
Yeah.
And so then I heard about audiobooks, and even my own daughter-in-law hasn't read it yet. She's waiting for the audiobook.
Coming soon.
Yeah, coming soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, I think, will make a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the book, I also have 11 other chapters, like an addendum I put on from different doctors that knew my work, a cardiologist, pediatric dentist, an orthodontist, a couple of T&J doctors, some breathing specialists, and a lactation consultant. The lady actually pioneered and conceptualized the whole field of lactation consulting.
Really? Wow.
She wrote a chapter, and an osteopath wrote a chapter in my book. So periodontist, just different specialties. And the sleep medicine doctor is actually, I'm treating her and her daughter right now as well. So,
oh, wow. Now,
and so they're excited because the sleep medicine physician and the cardiologist are both coming out with their own research in the field, and they're proving that I am correct, that this does help sleep issues.
Yeah.
Headaches, everything from a condition called mast cell dysautonomia, cranial cervical instability, headaches, migraines, forward head posture. There's so many fields.
Yeah.
If the tongue is up, it can stabilize the whole system, because the tongue resting up can support not only the brain, but the whole cranial base is held by the back of the tongue.
Yeah. Wow. I'm now finding myself conscious of where my tongue is sitting, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that this type of therapy has not always been mainstream or accepted, but now maybe it's moving more in that direction. Is that right?
Yeah. When I first started in this field, I knew it was fantastic because it helped my son. But it was really hard to convince other doctors to accept it, because we didn't have enough science behind it.
Right.
But since then, this was 1980 when I started. And since then, there's been many, many, many universities that I've spoken at and that have started research studies and have proven.
That's great.
That this whole field is very essential for health.
Yeah.
Stanford, we taught up there, and Northwestern and NYU and, UCLA, USC, and all over the world, and Sydney and Tokyo and Germany. And,
wow.
So,
yeah. Now, you were talking about schools, and you had shared a short story about when you went to dental school, because your name is Moeller, and like the tooth kind of molar, which I think it's always fun when we are, our name is connected to our profession or career or vocation. And would you share that story about?
When I was in dental hygiene school, I always liked teeth. Teeth were always my thing. I had a mother who was OCD about, taking good care of your teeth and the importance of your teeth. And so I found a dental hygiene program that was close to home, and everybody made fun of me because my name was Joy Moeller, pronounced like tooth, Moeller, and I'm from Flossmoor, Illinois. Flossmoor, Illinois is a suburb of Chicago in far south, so close to the Indiana border. And once when I was in hygiene school, we had a big bulletin board in the clinic. And all the other students in the class were giggling one day, and they made me wait in the lobby. And they said, "No, you can't come in yet. You can't come in yet." Finally, they said, "Okay, you can come in." And the bulletin board, they put a giant molar tooth with a smile, and they said, "Be a joyful molar, floss more." on it. I couldn't believe it. It was really cute.
That's great.
People have made fun of me, Joy Moeller from Flossmoor Dental Hygienist.
No. I should just point out for listeners who are not familiar with the spelling of your name that it is not spelled like the tooth, but it is spelled Moeller.
And then I also am certified, I'm double certified in functional therapy from two organizations. One is the IAON, which is the International Association of Oral Myologists, and the AOMT, which is the organization that I started, the Academy of Oral Facial Myofunctional Therapy. And so I'm probably the only person in the world that's certified by both organizations.
Wow. Amazing. Let's pause for a moment. We'll be right back. Here at Pro Audio Voices, we love working with authors who have a big goal in mind. They really want to reach out to their audience around the world. We're here to help make that happen. It starts with our pre-production process, where we're evaluating and determining what elements of the audiobook we can leverage to both create an excellent listener experience for your listeners, as well as drawing them to your website to engage with you further. It continues on through the production process, making decisions that will enhance and support your big goals, as well as creating a great listener experience. But we don't stop there. Once the audiobook is live, we move on to helping you market your audiobook with the Audiobook Marketing Program. Come check us out at proaudiovoices.com. To schedule a call to talk about your audiobook project, click on Get Started. Let's circle back just a little bit and talk a little more about the audiobook process. So I know that at the time of this recording that your audiobook is in production. So you've recently completed pre-production, and your book had a lot of visuals, a lot of photos, a lot of, images that many times an audiobook producer would have just omitted without a second thought. But as you know, and as hopefully most of our listeners know, that's not the way that we approach pre-production. And so I'd love to hear your experience in working with our pre-production specialist and about some of the decisions that you made together.
Well, it's been absolutely incredible because every step of the way they've made it so that whoever purchases the audiobook will understand it on a much different level, because we have men that wrote chapters and women who wrote chapters, and I wrote most of the book, at least half the book myself. So we needed different voices. So instead of having it all monotone where there's only one voice, there's different inflections from different readers.
Right.
And I know you have trained actors that work for you, so that will help engage the reader so that they really are listening 100%.
Yeah.
And will get the most out of the book. And hopefully they'll either want to buy a hard copy of the book, or we're going to take the pictures out of the book and put them on my website, joymoeller.com. So they'll be easy to find on the website.
Right.
And so they can actually look at pictures without buying the book because they'll be referenced to page so-and-so for a picture describing a before and after pictures of patients that have given me permission to use their information.
Yeah, great.
Especially good for the doctors that I treated, like the sleep medicine doctor and some pediatric doctors.
Yeah.
Some of the pictures describe a lot that you can't get from an audiobook, but you'll have the ability to just go to my website and find the pictures easily.
Right.
So you'll have a visual.
Right. And because many of our listeners are authors and people working in the audiobook industry, I just want to point out that the challenge that you were facing when you came to us, in that you were having trouble getting people to actually read the print book, so wanting to get it into audio so they could listen, and then the opportunity, which I call it rather than a challenge, of having those images, it allowed us to create a way for people to get involved in the actually listening to the audiobook, and then still have those resources available to them, while also then those resources become a draw to your website. Because I know from being at your website that and from knowing you a little bit, is that you have a lot more available there to offer. And so that way your listeners get even more value, both from listening to the audiobook, also from visiting your website, and you get the benefit of that connection as well.
So they get the audio and the visual.
Right.
And it kind of works together, to hear everything, see everything. That's great.
Exactly.
It's really wonderful. Your team has been amazing, because everybody is so specialized and individualized, and everybody checks on everybody, and everything's precise. And it's been really a pleasure, a lot easier than I thought it would be, to get the audiobook done and in a very timely manner. Everybody's so professional. Every single person, whether it be a reader or a developer or everybody's into their own thing. And it's just made it a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
Great. Thank you. Tell us a little bit, let's just chat for a minute about the title of your book. I understand that somewhere along the way there was some resistance to that title.
At first I thought, wow, this is like a murder mystery, It's kind of like a scary book, And I wasn't sure about the title and the print on the book, because it looks like, oh, this could be a horror story or something. Is your tongue killing you?
Right.
But then the more I thought about it, this is what's happening to people.
Yeah.
We have such a large percentage of people, and I've been doing this for 44 years now, myofunctional therapy. When I first started, there were, just a few children. Rarely did we have adults, but it was mostly about tongue thrust and putting your tongue in, and how it went along with orthodontic treatment. And so that's how, the dental thing got me and actually my boss as well interested in, because he was a TMJ specialist, like a jaw specialist. Yeah. And we had a close-knit group of dentists that we referred to for orthodontics as well. And I thought, well, yeah, because if you're tongue thrusting, you're pushing your teeth out of
alignment.
Yeah. And also we do thumb sucking therapy, nail biting therapy, all the different therapies that go along with tongue thrusting. Mm-hmm. But in the 44 years I've been doing this, first of all, it's much worse than it was. Sleep apnea was it was minimized in 1980. There wasn't much to do about sleep medicine. That wasn't even a specialty yet.
Do you think that it was less of a physical or health problem, or it just hadn't been identified as a health problem, or there just weren't ways to help resolve it? What do you think?
We're kind of all up the above, but I do think it's gotten much, much, much worse. And they think it's combination of the chemicals, the plastics in the environment, the tongue ties. I maybe saw one patient a year when I first started that had an actual tongue tie. And now I'd say it's probably 40 to 50% of my patients
Really?
could benefit from a tongue release.
Wow.
Yeah. And so what's causing the tissues to tighten up? They're fascial tissues, like under your tongue. And, you think about what's happening to the fish we eat from eating the plastic bottles, and then we eat the fish.
Right.
It's more than that. It's the addition of so much processed foods, because we used to eat hard bread and chew things more. And now it's smoothies, pasta. Kids like pasta, smoothies, macaroni and cheese, or, soft food. They would rather eat mashed up, whatever food that's over processed than actually having to chew anything hard carrot or hard piece of bread. Everything has to be soft.
Right.
And also lack of breastfeeding, or lack of breastfeeding long enough. Because when you read Shelley Marmit's chapter, and again, she's the lady who pioneered and conceptualized the whole field of lactation consulting.
Yeah.
You'll understand how we've turned our back in a lot of ways on breastfeeding, or women give up because they want to go back to work, or it takes too much time, or because breast milk is not as rich as formula. And so the baby is hungrier more often.
Right.
And so many parents, depend on two incomes to live nowadays, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
So they have to go back to work. And so then they depend on childcare or bottle feeding, which creates habits. Then they find their thumb, and they up their thumb, and that causes the palate to become distorted, and the tongue rests down instead of up in the palate. The thumb is taking the place, or nail biting, or chewing collars or cuffs or sweatshirt strings or something.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So we're morphing, and people who've been doing myofunctional therapy a long time, like myself, we see it, and it's very fearful. And I think it's and the situation's much worse since computers came along as well, because now we have computer posture, like these things, the cell phones, and, texting, and computer posture, and eating in front of the computer, and all of the posture issues that are causing the growth and development to change, and you add heavy backpacks and other things. Just sucking your thumb is pulling your head forward. So it can cause a lot of problems, to the point where people have migraines and sleep disorders, and there's more suicides now than ever before. Young people especially. And there's so much pressure on people to look good.
Yeah. And
a lot of problems develop. I've seen so many people that have had repeated jaw surgeries, different neck and back surgeries.
Yeah.
So it's becoming a serious medical disability to have a myofunctional disorder.
Wow.
Yeah.
If
your tongue is down, then the palate collapses. And so you have a high, narrow palate instead of the big, wide palate.
Yeah.
And so when it's high and narrow, you figure it out. The roof of your mouth is the floor of your nose. So if the roof of your mouth is narrow instead of wide, people can't get enough oxygen. So they breathe through their mouth. And then things just get worse because your head weighs as much as a bowling ball.
Right.
So if your tongue is resting down, it's just enough to pull the head down. So it's harder to swallow. It's harder to swallow anything.
Wow.
Your head is forward. So it just creates a whole gamut of posture issues, airway issues, teeth issues. And everybody wants beautiful, straight teeth.
Right.
But there's never enough room in the mouth. So if the orthodontist waits there, if the parents wait too long, then the orthodontist feels the only way we can do it is to pull some of the permanent teeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you do that, then there's less room for the tongue. The tongue has to go somewhere.
Right. What an interrelated set of issues you have raised. It's really, really fascinating. And what would you love for your listeners of the audiobook and your readers to take away from the experience of your book, your audiobook?
I think it's an education as to what is my responsibility? What can I do? What can I do to take control of my health myself? And what can I do to, first of all, prevent the problem in my children, but also treat the cause of the problem as an adult or an older child?
Yeah.
Before you try to make the corrections surgically or orthodontically, or so many people have done years of speech therapy over and over again, or physical therapy. And instead of looking at the very cause of the problem, you can't just come. It used to be you could come from the other way and the person would just correct. It's harder and harder because we have more assaults, not just the EMFs, but the toxins in our food supply, the vaccines, and the multitude of vaccines, because I remember when my kids were little, there wasn't as many vaccines, and now there's so many vaccines, and they give too many at one time, and that causes problems. And everything's wrapped in plastic. Just think, going to the grocery store, everything has plastic on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
which is a problem in so many ways. Our health, our environment. Yeah. So many ways. Yeah.
And, I tried in the book to come up with solutions.
Yeah.
Solutions to live a better life. And hopefully the patients that are reading this, or people that are reading this, are going to go back to their physician and say, what about this?
Yeah.
And there's many, many pages of references in the book too, so that I'm proud of the book. And the foreword that was written by the former dean of Yale, who was the author of the biggest sleep book that was written, Mayor Krieger. So who's the dean of sleep medicine at Yale University. So she said wonderful things about the book.
That's so great.
And his latest manual for sleep medicine doctors, he had 2 chapters on myofunctional therapy. So
nice. And and I want to make sure that, for listeners that may have questions, and want to learn more about this, in addition to listening to your audiobook or reading the book, your website, if you would just remind them what your website is right now, that'd be great.
Yeah, Joy Moeller, JoyMoeller.com.
Great. Thank you.
JoyMoeller.com. And our teaching academy is aontinfo.org. We've trained most of the people in the United States that are doing this therapy. And it's a postgraduate course for speech pathologists, hygienists, physical therapists, occupational therapists, nurse practitioners.
Great.
And a lot of doctors and dentists and specialists from all over the world have taken the course.
Great. And is there information on your website about that?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Good. And I want to let those who have not yet experienced the listening to Is Your Tongue Killing You, that it is available at amplifyaudiobooks.com. And that would be the best way to purchase it. Also available at your favorite audiobook retailer, if that's somewhere other than Amplify Audiobooks. Joy, thank you so much for this time together. I have learned a lot. I hope our listeners have as well. It's been a real delight. So again, Joy Moeller, author of Is Your Tongue Killing You? Joy, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us for Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. Please take a moment to subscribe at audiobookconnection.com. The podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Learn more at proaudiovoices.com. Again, thanks for being with us, and please join us next week.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.